Hey folks, Tim, Faceless Fat Loss here. Tim, aka Faceless Fat Loss. Yeah, you're gonna have to bear with me. This is like the fourth time I've done this video. I am having so much trouble not making flubs, so let's give it another shot. Um, okay. Where I wanted to continue here was with the pH. Very important topic here. People were writing to me after the first video asking me about alkaline forming foods. So I have a list for you here in this video. It's by no means exhaustive, but I'll get to it in just a moment. I wanted to go back to the pH scale for a second and point out something to everyone that I failed to point out the first time around. It's just something that's good to know. A pH of 6 versus a pH of 7. They appear to be 1 point values difference between the two. But what's important to understand is that there's actually 10 whole levels between these two readings here. In other words, if you have a pH of 7, you are literally 10 times more alkaline than you would be at a pH of 6. The reason I point this out is this is why the alkalinization is so focused on, because we are such an acid, our foods in general have been so acid forming for so long that we need to get more into the alkaline state. This is why this is focused on so much. We tend to run so acid, and with that difference, that gargantuan difference, it becomes that much more of a challenge. In other words, consuming the foods, the alkaline foods, alkaline forming foods, is what will get us to where we're trying to go. But it will take some time and will take a consistent effort. So on to my list that I have here. I compiled this from various sources that I respect, and I omitted certain things and allowed certain things to stay in just so that you can explore them on your own. As an example of what I omitted, this is the start of the vegetables here. I omitted mushrooms. I have an issue with mushrooms as a yeast and fungus type issue. You know how I feel about that. I personally, if I consume any kind of product that contains yeast as an ingredient, I have a reaction to it pretty readily, especially after 4 years worth of clean eating. So I just don't want to encourage folks to be consuming mushrooms because they are a fungi, however you want to pronounce it, and I think it could contribute to yeast and fungal issues. Now, when it comes to yeast and fungal issues in the intestinal tract, let me scroll down here so you guys can see more. You don't need to write this stuff down, folks. Just look at it. You'll recognize a lot of the foods as being the healthy type of foods that I've listed before. Get to the end of this list of vegetables. When it comes to yeast and fungus being in our digestive tract, they can very readily interfere with the digestion of our food. After all, they need to eat too, right, folks? So where are they getting their nutrition from? Well, they're getting it from whatever you are eating. So, as an example, you may be consuming a certain amount of protein, as an example, and any other kind of food really that the yeast and fungus want to take advantage of. If the yeast and fungus are taking advantage of these foods and taking up some of the nutrients, then you're stuck with probably craving more of these kinds of foods to compensate for what they're taking up. As an example, when it comes to the proteins, perhaps you will take in more of the animal proteins, such as the meats or the dairy products. All this serves to do is make your body more acid. Those kinds of foods are notorious for creating an acid type environment. So you're taking in more foods that are acid forming. Yeast and fungus love acid type environments, but you have to take in more of the foods because you're trying to compensate to get more of your proteins and nutrients from them, and you're creating this perpetual endless cycle maintaining an acid type environment. That's my point here. You'll notice blueberries are missing from this list. Now, the object isn't to do all alkaline, only alkaline forming foods. What we want is an 80 to 20 ratio, roughly. 80% alkaline forming, 20% acid forming. But the idea is, our diets are so inundated with acid-forming foods as they are, that if you just stuck to these kinds of foods on this list, you certainly can't overdose on them. Your body won't say, "Oh, I'm getting too much of this kind of alkaline food and I better cut back on it." We don't get enough of these kinds of foods as it is because we have so much acidity going on as it is. So strive to get more of these kinds of foods in your diet. You might have noticed that blueberries were missing from the fruit list. They are an acid fruit. And we all know what kind of positive qualities blueberries have. Great, terrific antioxidant properties. So, of course, we don't want to do only all alkaline foods. Again, we're looking for that 80-20 ratio balance. We do need acid environments internally. It's absolutely vital. Now, interestingly, you know how I feel about grains in general. Grains, especially refined grains, are notorious again for creating an internal acid environment. Now, apple cider vinegar is great for alkaline forming, And I mentioned the grains next because I want to make it clear. Anyone who's excessively overweight has excessive issues with fat. Those are the people who need to pay attention to a reduction of the grains, especially refined grains in their diet. It needs to be a focus, but that doesn't mean I'm totally anti-grains. If I haven't made it clear in the past, that's not the way I feel at all. It's just that I'm anti many specific grains. A great exception to that is millet as a grass/grain. Millet is an alkaline forming food. It's fantastic in that regard, and there are some sprouted grains as well that are great, especially for people who may be underweight and need nutrition and a nutritional component to help them gain weight. There are some really healthy, nutrition-packed grains out there, as long as they're eaten in as close to their whole form as possible and avoiding the flour components. Okay, we want them to be whole. I re-mentioned lemon here. Lemon water, which can bring us into an alkaline state, help make us more alkaline, has also been shown to reduce the appetite. Isn't that fascinating? So keep that in mind too. Now, to end this here, what is happening? Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to cover really quick. Blackstrap molasses. The glyconutrients I covered in another video. Those 8 simple sugars, some of which are severely lacking in our diet. Blackstrap molasses, if you do not have a sugar issue, is a fantastic source, organic blackstrap molasses, of those glyconutrients. Great source for those. There's a lot of products out there that claim to give you the supplement of the glyconutrients, but you can get them from blackstrap molasses just the same. Yes, lastly, what our body is doing when it's in an acid state is it's looking for those alkaline forming foods to help balance it. Within that, it's looking for specific minerals, specifically calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. All of these help give us their alkaline forming. So, if you're in an acid type state and your body's looking for calcium and it's not getting it from your diet, where is it going to get it from? You all guessed it. It's going to go right to your bones. It's going to leach the calcium from your bones. Hence the massive osteoporosis issues we have in our Western culture. Why not instead get our bodies back into a healthy pH condition whereby our body can utilize the food we are taking in and derive the calcium it needs from our food, the alkaline forming foods that are high in that calcium to begin with. Thus the importance of making sure we have healthy pH levels. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. Love, happiness, health, and peace.